are the tools of the trade. I have gotten in the habit of not so much using a sketchbook because lately I've been scanning in my work. Probably one of the things that, you know, you can do a sketchbook, and they always encourage you in art school to do that. The reason why I am not using a sketchbook is because the graduate program I'm in, they like to have documentation. Okay, so there are times when you choose to do a certain class, like you have to sign up for that review portion. So if you do it online, you submit online. And so I'm kind of in this weird place where I'm kind of switching eventually to in-person classes. So, but just in case, I want to have everything easily that I can just put it on my flatbed scanner and scan it. So it ends up being 8.5 by 11 sheets of paper. I buy cover stock now. I get the bright white paper, and yeah, I buy it in reams at a time. 4 sets of pencils that I use. Everybody's different. Some people love mechanical pencils. I need to think about if I want to venture in that direction. I still use my old school need to sharpen the pencils. I like taking a break every once in a while. Maybe that's why. So I use any kind of, this is a, what did I say this was last time? Oh yeah, 4H. Sorry, I'm getting old. So 4H, because you're going to get a much lighter line. And for those who don't know, H tells you it's a harder lead pencil, so you are going to get lighter lines. If you see B, that means softer, so then you're going to get a much darker line. The other ones that I've been using are my Blackwing pencils. I buy the 3 different, softnesses of them. Like the Blackwing is super, super dark. Yeah, very soft pencil. And then I have the medium, and then I have the white. Sometimes I won't even use the in-between, and I'll just stick with like 3 pencils. You don't need a ton of pencils. That's probably one of those things that when I was in my undergrad, they have you buy those big sets of pencils, like, and I probably still have them, but they're hardly ever used because you only end up using probably 3 or 4 pencils. I don't know, that's just me. I mean, unless I'm doing a full out, I guess, still life, but even then, when I'm doing, I usually only use 3 or 4 pencils. So if you ever want to save yourself some money when you're in art school, find out what are probably, get yourself 3, 4 good pencils, and you're set to go. And you can buy them in a big case of them. So I buy them in the boxes. They come in boxes for these Blackwings. You get a set of 12 pencils at $20 for a box of pencils, but they work out really great. I mean, okay, so probably one of the things when I am doing drawings, like I said, I was struggling. And for some people, for beginning, anybody beginning drawing, and drawing people, getting your gesture correct, kind of making them feel like it's a flat sheet of paper, but you still want it to feel like they could be living and breathing characters. So in illustration, you're trying to bring your characters to life in children's books so that you really feel like they could be, like, this one was probably much better. Yeah, to me, these are the lower ones because those were the ones after I'd warmed up. The others, they are much better the second pass. So what I figured out for myself, and this is something I stole from animation animators, because they have to really capture movement really well in their drawings, and that's really by drawing from life. I know a lot of times we get into this habit of always drawing from a photo, always use that photo reference. And for me, I just get really uptight and stiff. It's almost like I'm trying to really capture and stiffen up and everything, and it shows in the drawing. So when I'm drawing people and I'm trying to warm up, watch video. Yeah, and I can't remember if I was a YouTube channel or something I read, and so animators will watch video of like things in movement, and you can pause and stop the frames of the video, and it's going to really help you understand, well, how is that arm moving, or what's going to create that line that's going to capture that gesture. So I'm going to do that in my drawing here. I'm going to draw one of a little girl with my 4H pencil, my lightest pencil, on my 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. Okay, so I found a video on YouTube that I liked with a girl dancing, and I highly recommend looking on YouTube for different people moving and action, because obviously sometimes it's really hard to find a live model at home, so YouTube's a great resource for that. I can't show the video because obviously that is copyrighted, it belongs to somebody else, so, and also it's their kid too. I feel a little weird about, you know, showing somebody else's video. Okay, so when I start with my gesture drawings, and so gesture is really about capturing the motion. You're not so concerned with maybe the proportions, but it's kind of thinking about some basic concepts. You're thinking about a line of action, so, and the direction that the main part of the body and the line that it's the direction that line is moving in. So what I will do is I will start out with the head first. So I'm just gonna kind of rough in that egg shape right there, and then my line of action, because she's doing kind of this turn, it's like it's this curve of the back and then going down. Also, because she's a smaller child, this is what I have a tendency of doing lately, because it's a child. Do this kind of bean shape for the body. I want to make sure I get that arch in there. But this would be this line right here would be your line of action. It's just kind of a line that tells us the main force of the direction. And so like now I'm going to go ahead and add the line of the leg and the line of the arms right here. Okay. And I am probably not the greatest about it, but a lot of times you don't really have to keep drawing over it. You really want to be more intentional and really think about, you know, not so much how many lines you have drawn, but really that main line of action, because then your drawing tends to get a little bit hairy looking. Yeah, see, I already could have been more mindful about that. Okay, so now I'm going to go in and start capturing actual shapes, and legs are really great for this, for showing action and motion. And I am going to exaggerate a little bit. I thought about this. I don't want it to be exact to what the actual, this is where I start making revisions and changes. And switching things up a little bit. I'm going to check my proportions just a little bit here. Could bring that down a little bit. Yeah, there's always where your crotch is. That's going to be your halfway point. You know, I want to get somewhat a little bit closer in proportion, so I know that should be halfway. This should be your knee, that's going to be halfway. So if I measure that, yep, that's about half. So, but that's always one of the standard ones. Always like half point is going to be right there. And then I am going to go in and get her arms. Curves. This curves. The reason why I use a lighter pencil because it's a lot easier to erase, because I'm going to need to make adjustments as I move along. And I also like to practice a little bit of drawing through things. So even though her hand's right here, I'm going to make sure I draw that through, just so I know that these things connect correctly. I'm not so concerned about having to draw every single finger. All right. Okay, so another thing that I always think is helpful when you want to show your gesture and movements is that the fabric of the person's clothing, when you start adding those lines of the fabric moving, that's going to help make it look a little less stiff. I also want to indicate where her waist is, her waistline is. And then I'm going to go ahead and make sure that this should come out, this should come out, this goes in. There we go. This comes out and now it goes in. And bring some. Alright, so now for a little bit of the details of the head. Hair is also good, so if I want to, you know what, let's make this a little bit different. Make it more like it's a short ponytail of hair. Eyebrows are going to meet at the top of the ears. Nose is at the bottom, mouth is about halfway. Okay, so now I'm going to back in. It should be a little bit thicker. There we go. And now I like to do more simple, because this isn't like a realistic because I like to do it for a children's book style. I need to thin up her neck. Maybe. So it's maintaining those curves so I can make it look like she's the deltoid muscle. Even though she's young, she's got a little bit of, she's a dancer, so she has a little bit of muscularity. Okay, now I can go in with one of my darker pencils, and I'm just going to go ahead and hit some of those lines. And I've kind of decided, as I've been practicing more with my drawing, like what I want to do with my actual technique. And I've decided, like, I just really like drawing a lot. I enjoy it, and it's that part of illustration that I love. It's a little too repetitive. Watch out when you repeat things. You just see like that's like a third of a third of a third, and it just doesn't seem as organic. Sometimes you need to change things up. If it looks a little too so now I can get rid of that. Actually, it probably just needs one curve. When you start thinking about stylistically, how are you going to change things? How are you going to make it your own? I decided I like smaller feet. I don't know. You know, these are things that I I personally make a choice because it just looks a little bit cuter. I got that upper calf. I could make that more pointed and looks a little odd to me. Probably the heel is too. Oh, that foot's really bothering me. Thought I had it worked out. Right, and I'm gonna throw in her hair, her neck. And since the light's coming from this way, she should cast a shadow this way. And as it extends further away from her, it's going to get lighter. It's going to be darkest here, and then it gets lighter. And like, this is one of those things. Make sure your shadow lays flat. This is what I get a lot of times. When you start making your shadow go up, because, you know, you get so caught up, and this is what I see students do when they're in beginning drawing classes. So it depends on what you're trying to communicate. If you're trying to communicate there's a wall right there, then that would be appropriate. If you're saying that there's a wall right here and then the shadow is falling on the wall, but if you're trying to say that there's really nothing in the background, or that you want your shadow to lay on the ground. And so that's one of those beginner mistakes that I see. And so now if I don't want to, I just use my handy dandy paper towel and fill that in. But I definitely say, like, if there's something that you struggle with in drawing, and, you know, for me, the longest time, it's been just drawing people. I mean, it's just one of those things. People are complex, and we move in different ways, and the proportions and things like that. And I have some books that I'm going to recommend, and I'm going to do a separate video for. Books that really help me really understand to have better drawing and what I can do. Besides, there's tons of things online that you can always find, but I feel like sometimes I need something like physical in my hand, and I would want this to be darker. And probably because this is right here, see, I would want a shadow that curves. and follows the contour of her leg. Same for here. I can something simple like that is going to help make that look a little bit more three-dimensional. And this side will have a shadow because you get this leg right here. Just a little bit. And like I said, I'm constantly learning and trying to improve my drawing skills and get to the point where I just feel a lot more like you can just draw that and not have to think so much about all these little things. You know, I feel like it's all muscle memory. The more you do something, I tell students it's just like if you play sports and you're going to shoot a basketball, you know, how many times does it take to shoot from the three-point line? You just have to do it over and over and over again. And then it's just like you don't even think about it. It's just muscle memory. So I feel like drawing's the same way.